Video games are fun, and even the fun ones tend to make a splash. The great ones do more than just entertain. They resonate and stay with you only slightly less so than echoes after a deafening thunderclap. The games vary from casual to hardcore, but some of them are so immersive and addicting that you develop the worlds, stories, and characters of the games. It's such a bittersweet, empty feeling, and if you see it through to the end after investing hours of your life in it, it's even harder to say goodbye. So today I have 10 selections of games that you will be sad when they are done. Let's dive into the list. Resident Evil 4 is a game that realizes itself to be an odyssey. You set out for this strange village with nothing but your trusty handgun, some limited combat experience, and one objective: rescue the president's daughter. You also meet some friendly faces throughout the game, who are mostly pretty engaging and likable characters, leading to a completely invested interest in their stories. On top of all that, basically you just become a bit fond of where you go visit as well, because the atmosphere is so special, and it makes even what should be ugly look kinda nice. Complement that with incredibly deep survival horror gameplay, which manages to remain intense even after your 5th playthrough, and you have a game that delivers. Unfortunately, all good thing comes to an end. The first time I completed this game, and was happy that it did add an extra to the whole adventure thing, but as soon as I had sawed through Skinner's throat, shot Marston dead in tall trees, and rode over 10 different cliffs with his offspring, is when my chemically enhanced joy of beating a fun game on very hard turned into sadness. Not even the numerous other RE games, some with appearances from Leon, still hit that right note. Perhaps that is for the best. After all, Resident Evil 4 has a certain charm that truly sets it apart. Often, the less we try to replicate things, or force some specific thing into being again, the better they turn out. The film that launched 1,000 Uncharted knockoffs is one of gaming's best action adventures, if not outright the best, simply by virtue of being so goddamn cinematic. They already had an entire trilogy and a spin-off with these characters that players were highly invested in when Nathan Drake, Sully, Alina, and co. And yet these new character debuts can feel as well-rounded to the audience that has known them for years, which is a testament to how strong this writing really is, because you just drift along in what feels like an extension of your life's daily experiences. Things get a little heavier as the story moves along, and you empathize directly with these canny characters. This feels like your game, so the stakes are very real by now. It moves at an awesome stride that carries you on the journey, with its pulse-pounding action scenes galore, thrill after thrill, which basically sets up a series of seat-edge maneuvers during journey. When the game finally wraps, it's not only a bittersweet ending to Uncharted 4, but Nathan Drake for sure, as presented in this series. The player is more or less told that they will be saying goodbye for good to the beautiful graphics, amazing story, fun gameplay, and all of those charming characters you have come to love.
You almost done here?
This is the last of them, man.
Good. If we are, we can catch up with the others.
We're done.
Most of my men are dead, Rafe.
No surprise, seeing as it's from the genius who masterminded Alan Wake 2, one of the greatest horror games around, included in our list. It is great to see that he delivers, and it comes as no surprise given his excellent first game. But there was a jump in quality over the already top-tier original Alan Wake. The game features stunning photorealistic visuals. The game is addictive to fun. The terror hitches in your undead chest, and the writing is so mean, you always want to see who loses next. It feels like the world you've been a part of with Alan Wake isn't real, and that after all this time, you just want him out. But it's sad to such a well-done game end. It just stinks. Especially when you start to like how the characters are written and portrayed. That enduring mystery just makes it more difficult to banish from the memory bank. It isn't flying off the shelves like a blockbuster hit either, which only bodes less well for Alan Wake's future. Mass Effect 3 isn't the first Mass Effect game, and just by that fact alone, you're almost forced to compare it to the previous two.
You did it. Now the darkness no longer protects him, but it's still inside, controlling him. He can't be saved. He's still a threat. He is still your enemy.
Mass Effect 3 had the best combat by a mile. Mass Effect 1 had rudimentary RPG shooter mechanics. Mass Effect 2 improved upon that in a major way, and Mass Effect 3 then brought it all together seamlessly. The refined combat really shined during the multiplayer, and it paired great with the level design. Veronica Mars S4 debuted on Hulu. Now let's talk about that ending, an elephant in the room. People wanted everything tied up in a neat bow, and they didn't really get that. The ultimate power of Mass Effect 3 though, and where it really excelled in general, was its lore elements, cinematic sequences, and action. They had phenomenal environments with a great sense of scale. The refined combat taking the franchise to new heights in gameplay, because you probably spent all of today doing that. For me, the most emotional part of Mass Effect 3's ending wasn't that the ending itself. It was the sum of all 3 games. The trilogy had such an impact on me that when I saw those words in Mass Effect 3, it genuinely felt like the death ending of a phase in my life. Well, without a doubt, MGS4 is one of the coolest and most enjoyable video games you will ever come across, especially in its specific action stealth style. But hey, guess what? It's bound to be, since this title is sequel to not any less than series featuring 3 titles, being typically among titles generally considered as best crafted for all time because of their absordo-level attention on detail, including aforementioned double meta writing and impact upon whole industry. When it arrived in 2008, Metal Gear Solid 4 had to wrap up a sprawling web 3 decades deep, featuring appearances from the entire range of memorable characters, Solid Snake, Big Boss, and Ocelot included, and bringing their shared fate into focus. This was the last time we would see their stories play out, but the one that really struck a chord for me was the Shadow Moses chapter. It was quite possibly the largest nostalgia bomb ever set off in my presence. As a kid, I played the shit out of MGS on the PS1, so walking through Shadow Moses one more time with that music playing hit me right here. As an adult, playing the location and how it had changed since we saw Shadow Moses also got me thinking about myself. It messed with my head and made me feel like a child again, as it gets you to remember all the Metal Gear games from over the years that have been so great in your life. Excuse me for getting a little emotional, but that hit right in the feels. The ending of the game is sad, and that's what makes you cry. There are no truly happily ever afters in the Crimson Zone ever. The best you can expect is something of a combination, so don't be surprised if the tears are also for what the game showed you, and then took away from itself. All things considered, there's not much out there like MGS4. This is a game with superb action, cool boss battles, and incredible freedom in how you deal with its encounters. Nowadays, we'll never see something of this quality again, thanks to Hideo Kojima parting ways with Konami and the highly questionable Pachinko Land that is MGS 0.5 or whatever it's called nowadays. But at least 4 managed to give us a good ending point for the franchise as well though. NieR Automata is sprawling and grim, whilst being beautiful, bold, tragic all at once. There's some deep philosophy put into the game, also in terms of lore and main story. Because the more you play it, this tear-filled game convinces that beauty might be present even in your life's bleakest moments, and if only never stop searching. Its world is vast, and the pacing of the game holds a kind of majesty to it. The almost constant jumps from character to character during the storytelling portion of your adventure will always make you feel very connected, as though you are reading an interesting story for yourself. The gameplay is super duper fun, with a lot to offer on different characters. Slicing it up with a sword or dishing out various pod-based attacks is great fun. It marries both together really well, and now you want to go fight some more enemies, just so you can get back into the combat. The meta themes of the game also layer in a series uniquely scripted sequences that consistently change everything up, so we're never playing through anything repetitive or aged. When the story comes to an end, you can feel for these characters. Your decisions have changed which side you've picked, but Many of the choices also result in divergent outcomes and endings as well, so it's even more fun to watch how things will play out. And the end is as too real and terrible to say goodbye, everyone else being sad, not how one might wish. It is one of those games that lingers, that reaches you in a way few others can. Arkham Knight was the grand finale to a series of Batman action games that delighted fans, both in terms of their adoration for the Caped Crusader and just as players. It set a new bar for licensed games, always half-hearted attempts based on superb comic books up to this point, and blew away stereotypes that had grown around the superhero genre. Arkham City took it to the next level, with Arkham Origins right alongside of it, and now fans want to know more. The very moment Arkham Knight entered, it felt clear that this was the last time to be spent with Bruce Wayne and Gotham at all in these years together. There were one or two complaints about some individual aspects, but on the whole, I thought it wrapped up very well indeed for both story and its gameplay. At the end, it's gonna be so obvious that you are saying farewell. But not just these characters or the semi-open world gameplay loop so iconic to Arkham. Rather, you will have miles of Gotham from ground level and a revived helping hand in every criminal downed by fist, gadget, vehicle, and intellect that NieR Dark Knight has brought low before. And it was later determined that the developers had done a brilliant job with bringing closure to this particular story. This game is like going through an amazing novel. Long and heartfelt, the story can be related to very easily as a tragedy that quickly makes it an immersive experience. You do not begin to control Arthur Morgan with the journey he initiates, starting somewhere unwelcome, considering that few will meet him in Act 1 as an immediately likable protagonist. Accompanying this man, who is equally charming and cruel, makes it feel like you both grow together on your adventure. Small decisions on dialogue throughout the story add up, while each side mission you complete further adds to your relationship with these characters and world. Additionally, in terms of the world itself, Red Dead Redemption 2 has one of the best open worlds ever featured in a video game. This level is loaded with things to do, and there's never a sense of pointlessness. Exploration is consistently rewarding as you discover new activities, such side projects, such fishing and gambling, hunting to keep it exciting. There is honestly so much detail in the game, with many repeatable points where you'll be amazed as to just how it was included. The gunplay also matches up, making this possibly one of the most enjoyable shooter for a few years. You get so close to it that by the end, you are not prepared. Even if, after 70 hours or so, there is little more interwoven with these characters and this world for it to offer, though it all wraps in an oddly satisfying and bittersweet way that neatly threads into the original Red Dead Redemption, which takes this story. The Max Payne series has never shied away from the darkness and trepidation. The first two games, created by Sam Lake, are masterful neo-noir tales of a cop perpetually beset by tragedy and betrayal. The two Mau protagonists felt like two sides to the same story, and both ended on tragic notes, the second game closing with fans wondering whether there would be a third. Against all odds, Rockstar had the audacity to carry on without the original creator. You can see the difference in tone and in direction, and if you were to say how we feel in the gamer community, this is not Max Payne 3 the movie, but the transition is certainly noticeable and far from soulless. It has the same dark tone as its predecessors, but takes a more modern approach to pacing and design. The gunfight mechanics are some of the finest featured in a modern game, and the third-person genre, Max Payne 3 is the best. It is sleek, visceral, and addictive. The chaos around Max to keep the action quick and exhilarating is a hallmark of Rockstar's budget around every corner. As is the norm, the story itself itself is excellent. You could expect no less from Rockstar, but the voice acting is great and fully makes the most of the material. I had my doubts about them ultimately being able to handle the franchise though, and while I don't fault those who would rather see it done in the original style, they proved me wrong more often than not. After you exit the game, it leaves you with a feeling of gloom. Naturally, Max still doesn't have it all together, true to the tragic narrative that has traced him since the game's mess. Yes, yet a part of relief as well, because maybe the end of his suffering. Perhaps with no more sequels to worry about, Max won't have to suffer anymore.
Rodrigo! It's Max!
And there is a simple reason this happened with Baldur's Gate 3, a passion project, AAA developed, that wasn't being made to chase a trend or appease some out-of-touch executive. A ridiculous amount of stuff will keep you occupied for hundreds of hours if you want it to be. An RPG that is as close to perfect as you can get. A 70-hour playthrough is deeply satisfying all on its own. Anyway, the cool thing about this game is that it gives you the independence. You customize your character with various options, and from the very first minute, every step of your tale is determined purely by your choices. But for example, you can off key figures well before their dedicated plot arcs, or in some cases, straight up bring them back. Again, it's all up to you. Be good or bad, seek love or opt to go solo, every made decision belongs to you. The lack of surface accessibility means that it really takes hours to be truly good at it. Of course, after experiencing this world too deeply, the end can be a little bittersweet. You, your own story, your own adventures, 4 days of saying goodbye will leave you feeling a little hollow. Fortunately, the game's fantastic replayability, not to mention the equally fantastic online co-op mode, makes it simple to jump right back in for another round whenever the mood strikes. And that's my list of the 10 perfect games that will leave you feeling sad at the moment when they are done. Hopefully some of these titles have struck a chord with you, and if not, well then consider yourself fortunate that you can play them for the first time, and you get to enjoy them for the first time. Do tell me in the comments as to what games fits the bill for you. Until next video, see ya!